Hello, you're welcome back to Kemini Cuts and Same. So if you're new here, thanks for stopping by and please consider subscribing. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. So this is the sewing video of the updated Dartless pencil skirt that I uploaded on this channel. Okay, so this has to do with the waist allocation and the hip allocation. So first off, I have my fabric unfold and I had to get the base, okay, of dividing the highest measurement by 4, and that's what I had. So I will not waste fabric. So I'm getting my length now and I will mark it as my waistline. From the waistline, I'll be taking my vertical measurement of the hip line, the knee line, and the length. So feel free to work with whatever length you want to, but I want to make this a long skirt. Okay, so from the length, I'll be adding 2 inches for hemming. So now on the waistline, we have an allocation method. Now, if you haven't watched the updated Dartless pencil skirt on this channel, I'll leave the link in the description box below so you can go through it and have an understanding of it. So the waist allocation method, we I'm working with the waist measurement of 34 inches. I'll divide that by 2 and add 0.5. That's because of the tummy in front. And what I have, I'll divide it again by 2 because I'm cutting this on fold. And then I'll place it on my waistline. For the hip allocation, we have the hip measurement of 44 inches divided by 2 minus 1.5, because the front is not as curvy as the back. So when you subtract 1.5 from 44, you have about 22.5 inches. Dividing that by 2 because we're cutting this on fold. You place whatever you have on the hip line. And on my knee line, I'll subtract 1 inch from what I have on the hip line. I'll place it on the knee line and the length. Okay, and then I'll cut this out. So on the waistline, I'll go downward with ½ inch just to contour for the tummy, okay, to make it sit properly. So I'll then connect it to the waist measurement and then cut this out as a slant. And that's it for the front panel. For the back panel, the allocation method we have for the waist is 34 divided by 2 minus 0.5, which we have 16.5. Dividing that by 2, we have 8.25. So that's the measurement I will place on my waistline. And on my hip line, I'll use the allocation method again. Hip measurement of 44 divided by 2 plus 1.5. Remember, we subtracted 1.5 from the front panel. So we're adding that 1.5 back to the back panel because of the butt behind. Okay, so to make room for the butt. So I'm adding that to the back bodies. And on my length, I'll go inwards with 1 inch. I'll connect that to meet my knee line. And that will become my new center back. Okay, so with this, I'll form 1 inch because I'm doing a normal slit on this skirt. Now, pardon my chalk because I notice it's not really visible like I would have loved it to in this video. So please pardon that, but already I have a tutorial on this. So I just had to make a run over of the method so when we are sewing, we'll understand it properly. So like I said, I'll create a new zip zipper allowance, okay? So connecting that, I'll then cut this out. And at the waist there, as usual, we have 1 inch higher than the front panel. So when I'm done with that, to get the back measurement with the allocation method, okay, I'll simply cut the front panel as I'll cut the back panel as the front panel for now. And when I'm done with that, I'll simply mark the hip line and extend the line to where we have the butt allocation. And I'll subtract that ½ inch The half inch we added to the front panel, I'll subtract it from the back panel. So we have the right waist for the back panel. So I'll simply connect that half inch to the hip line, and that's just it, and trim it out. So if you like to try this method, please do well to send me a pics of it on my Instagram handle. I'll leave it on the screen. And feel free to ask whatever question you want to in the comment section. I'll be here to answer them. So when you're done cutting, I like to notch every part that will ease me when I'm sewing, like my midpoint and the zipper allowance. Okay, so I'll cut it on the lining. I'm not making a full lining. I'll just stop it few inches below the knee. So I'll cut the lining exactly like I have, just that the difference is the length. So cutting it out, I'll add interface to the zipper allowance and add my zipper. So after adding my zipper, you can see the bots, the space at the back there. So that's my zipper. And then I'll bring in my lining. I'll first of all sew the lining because I'm making a normal slit. Okay, I'll sew the lining like I will sew it to cover the zipper. Okay, just to have a neat look in the inside. So from the zipper allowance, I'll just take it to the zipper allowance on the main fabric. Okay, and then I'll sew it on the lining, the zipper, and the main fabric on one side of the zipper allowance. I hope you understand. Okay, so just the zipper allowance we have there, that's what I'm sewing on. I'm not sewing on the main skirt. So after sewing it, that's what it will look like. And for the slit down there, I'll be using a hemming gum to put it, to make it flat. So from the point I stop stitch, that's where I'll lose this slit to. That's where it will start. The slit will start from there. So then I will now use the hemming comb and iron the zipper allowance and the slit. Okay, so before I do that, I'll interlock everything, the lining and the main fabric. So I'm done doing that, and then I'll first of all measure the waist on the lining for the front and the back panel. Whatever difference I have, I'll divide it by 4, and then I'll use it as my sewing allowance. For instance, the waist is 34. If I have about 40 inches, then I have 6 inches as my excess. So I'll divide that 6 inches by 4, and I'm having 1.5 for each of the side to join with. So for the front panel is 1.5, the back panel is 1.5. So I'll do the same thing to the fabric, and this is what I have. The next thing, I'll just take out the 2 inches I used for the hemming and then turn the waist. So I like to show us how I turn my waist, because I'm making this a bandless. Okay, so remember I sewed the lining separate and the skirt separate. So I'll turn this inside out and take it to the waistline. I'll make sure that the right side faces the right side of the fabric, and I'll make the seams on the lining and the main fabric to meet. Okay, that's so you'll be sure that you're sewing the right thing, that this one is not going into the front panel or the back panel. It will make your skirts, on be on ease. So when you pin it like this, you'll be able to sew it, and then everything will be in place and relax. So trying to pin this, I'll take it to the machine, and then I'll sew it from one zipper to the other end of it. So when you're done sewing, you will trim out the excess of the zipper you're seeing there, and then you notch the corners. That's so it will not be too thick when you're turning it inside out. So after trimming this, you go through the lining and then you top stitch on the seam allowance that you made on the waist there. Okay, you take it through the lining, and then you stitch it on the lining. Be careful not to sew it on the main fabric, just on the lining. So the you're pushing the seam allowance to the lining part, and then you top stitch. And before you top stitch, you make sure that your zipper is equal, okay, so that one will not be up and the other one down. So everything has to be equal for you to have a nice look of your skirt. So when you top stitch this, after top stitching, I'll just take it to the ironing board, give it a good press, and that's it for our skirt. So here it is. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up so that other people get to see, comment and share. Thank you for watching.